Ukraine into NATO, and that didn't do it for whatever reason. We needed food and stuff. Now, like, that never happened. It's a great 2020. Do it. I mean, hello, everybody. Welcome. It is Shadow at Night for Tuesday, August the 26th, 2025. And on the show tonight, last night, when I was talking about Ukraine and Carney giving $2 more billion of our dollars for a total of $22 billion so far since this war began between Russia, since Russia invaded in 2022. And then I played the clip of Pierre Poilievre saying, this war is fully Russia's fault. And I said, no, it wasn't, and kind of fumbled the reasoning behind it. I suggested it went back decades, centuries even, the way Vladimir Putin described it on Tucker Carlson about a year ago. But I fumbled the ball badly when I was talking about the regime change over there and the leaked phone call from Victoria Nuland and the ambassador to Ukraine, the U.S. ambassador to Ukraine at the time. So I'm going to take the time tonight to clear that up so that everybody is on board. This doesn't go back that far. It's less than a decade, really. And, of course, Joe Biden and his involvement there with Burisma and his son. Let's not forget. And, by the way, he is mentioned in this leaked call with Victoria Nuland, whose estimated net worth, although it's very difficult to track down, and she was a bureaucrat. Yes, she was the Assistant Secretary of State in the United States government, but her net worth is estimated between $4 and $12 million US. How does a career bureaucrat achieve a net worth that high? Oh, I know what you're going to say. I'm not going to say it, but I know what you're saying. So we're going to clear that up in just a second. Tomorrow night on the show, we have Angelina Ireland. Angelina is with the Delta Hospice Society. Let me throw this up on the screen here. There it is. The Delta Hospice Society, and she's been making the rounds doing interviews, I'm going to say, for the last 4 years, although I only discovered the situation with Delta Hospice Society about a month and a half ago when I was out in BC, I think the first or second trip to the ostrich farm I took. Delta Hospice Society is a place where people can go to die with dignity. We all know what hospice is, end-of-life care. But because Delta Hospice Society refuses to offer MAID to any of their people, the government has withdrawn their funding. And it's been a battle. This has been going on now for 4.5, almost 5 years. An ongoing battle. So tomorrow night, she joins the show. Angelina Ireland of Delta Hospice Society joins the show tomorrow night. She's going to tell the entire story. You refuse to offer MAID in this country, we pull your funding. They want you dead. They want you dead. That's all there is to it. Another note that I got that was a little bit disturbing today from one of our viewers, I'm not going to name, but she said to me, hey, Shadow, I noticed on my recent bank statement, she banks with a Assiniboine Credit Union in Manitoba, and I would imagine any of their affiliates across the country are offering the same thing. So she said, I noticed on my bank statement that every time I made an e-transfer, I was being charged $1. I found that interesting. She went on to say that if she joined the Assiniboine Credit Union digital banking plan, then she would get a refund of up to $25 every month. And so I went onto the website and I checked it out and I went, yeah, that's what it says. But you have to read 3 or 4 different pages. It's very convoluted, very confusing, and very difficult to understand. And I'm sure it's made that way on purpose. So people don't go, hey, what are they doing? So is anybody else experiencing this with Assiniboine Credit Union or any of their affiliates where you're getting charged per e-transfer $1, but if you join their digital banking plan, digital banking, I'm telling you, then you get a refund of up to $25 at the end of every month. So I'm looking into that. You can message me via Facebook Messenger, or you can email me, shadowdavis@gmail.com, SHADOEDAVIS@gmail.com. All right, we're going to get to the Ukraine stuff in just a second. Let me go say some hellos here. Tony is watching from Calgary on X. Hello, Shauna Vision on Twitch, watching from PEI tonight. Darcy is on X, watching from Whitehorse. Hello, Ken in Dromana, Australia, watching on Facebook. Carla's in Calgary. Carla, you're going to have to move. You live too close to COP, man. I mean, that video we played last night, that's crazy. That's crazy. You're being radiated. Get the hell out of there. Patricia's watching in Grimsby. Hello, Janet watching in Smithers. Smithers, tip over this table for me. Yes, we have some stuff on Mark Carney tonight. Mr. Burns. Is the net zero scam falling apart? That's what you saw on the show thumbnail tonight. We're going to get into that. Dave is watching tonight from Winnipeg. Hello, Naranda in sunny Calgary. Judy is watching in Saskatchewan. Hello, Muriel watching in Newfoundland and Labrador. Sophie is watching in Victoria. Roy is watching from somewhere, I don't know where. Deborah, hello, how are you? Jeannie is watching in Calgary tonight. Rosie, make that Roseanne. I apologize. Watching in southern Manitoba. Saint Jean Baptiste is where Lucette is watching tonight. And lastly, hello, Lolita, watching in Winnipeg. Wherever you are watching the show tonight. Ooh, almost forgot my rumblers. Hello, Dog Lips and Cosford and Arnie7 and Bailey 2424. Jimmy James is over there. Lisa 1895. By the way, Jimmy, thank you so much for everything you're doing in the Shadow at Night community on Telegram. I really appreciate that, man. You are the settling force back there while I've got the content playing. Nutsy is watching. Crivier, Robin and Eva, Sask Patty, Senior Canuck, Esky Dogs 2. Again, wherever you guys are watching from tonight, do not forget to like and share. Let's get it out there. Like and share. All right, this is key. Like, share, subscribe. Get it out to as many people as you possibly can. Of the people that watch this show live, of which there are between 1,000 and 2,000 every night, depending on the time, do you know that usually only about 150 of you actually share this show on your platform, whatever it is? So I ask you again, first of all, like whichever page you're watching on right now, like it, subscribe, and then share it out there. Do not be afraid of what people might think of you. It doesn't matter. Who cares? Get it out there to as many people as you possibly can. This is very important information, guys. And if we wake up one person a day, just one, we're doing our jobs. We'll be right back. A lot of compliments on the music lately, guys. I haven't changed anything. The music is still the same, but thank you nonetheless. Okay, so last night, like I was saying, I fumbled the ball a little bit when it comes to the Ukraine situation regarding this regime change executed by the U.S. allegedly for the algorithms out there back in the early teens. So let's throw this up. Now, this is AI, not from Google, not from Mozilla, Bing. This is Brave. This is Brave's AI telling us this. The United States is widely reported to have played a significant role in the 2014 events in Ukraine, often described as a coup or revolution, which led to the ousting of President Viktor Yanukovych. This action is frequently characterized as a regime change effort by the U.S. and its allies. The National Endowment for Democracy, NED, a known U.S. regime change organization and CIA offshoot, was involved in supporting activities in Ukraine, with its director, Karl Gershman, stating in 2013 that Ukraine is the biggest prize and that pulling Ukraine away from Russia could undermine Putin's position. The U.S. government, through programs like Tech Camp, hosted events in Ukraine as early as 2012 through 2014, which were later acknowledged by Ukrainian officials as preparations for civil unrest. A leaked phone call between U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Victoria Nuland, which we'll play for you in just a second, and the U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, Jeffrey Pyatt, revealed discussions about which opposition figures should lead a new government, including Arseniy Yatsenyuk, indicating direct U.S. involvement in shaping the post-coup leadership. The U.S. and European Union imposed sanctions on Ukrainian officials deemed responsible for human rights abuses during the protests, and the U.S. provided support to opposition forces. The broader strategy is seen as part of a long-standing U.S. effort to expand NATO. And that's what I said last night, but I bumbled my way through it, and I'm sorry, and that's why I'm doing this right now, to clarify everything. To expand NATO and shift Ukraine towards the West, which some analysts argue created conditions that contributed to the 2022 Russian invasion. While U.S. officials, including Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and U.S. Ambassador to NATO, have denied any official policy of regime change in Russia, they have stated that President Putin cannot be allowed to wage war against Ukraine. And here is that leaked call featuring Victoria Nuland.
What do you think?
I think we're in play. The Klitschko piece is obviously the complicated electron here, especially the announcement of him as deputy prime minister. And you've seen some of my notes on the troubles in the marriage right now. So we're trying to get a read really fast on where he is on this stuff. But I think your argument to him, which you'll need to make, I think that's the next phone call we want to set up, is exactly the one you made to Yachts. And I'm glad you sort of put him on the spot on where he fits in this scenario. And I'm very glad he said what he said in response.
Good. So I don't think Cleach should go into the government. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you think, what, in terms of him not going into the government, just let him sort of stay out and do his political homework and stuff. I'm just thinking in terms of sort of the process moving ahead, we want to keep the moderate Democrats together. The problem is going to be Tony Book and his guys. And, you know, I'm sure that's part of what Yanukovych is calculating on all of this.
I think Yachts is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience. He's the guy, you know, what he needs is Cleach and Tony Book on the outside. He needs to be talking to them 4 times a week, you know. I just think Cleach going in, he's going to be at that level working for Yatsenyuk. It's just not going to work.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Okay. Good. Well, do you want us to try to set up a call with him as the next step?
My understanding from that call, but you tell me, was that the big three were going into their own meeting and that Yachts was going to offer in that context a three-way, you know, the 3+1 conversation or 3+2 with you. Is that not how you understood it?
No, I mean, that's what he proposed, but I think just knowing the dynamic that's been with them where Klitschko has been the top dog, he's going to take a while to show up for whatever meeting they've got. He's probably talking to his guys at this point. So I think you reaching out directly to him helps with the personality management among the three, and it gives you also a chance to move fast on all this stuff and put us behind it before they all sit down and he explains why he doesn't like it.
Okay, good. I'm happy. Why don't you reach out to him and see if he wants to talk before or after?
Okay, will do. Thanks.
Okay, I've now written, one more wrinkle for you, Jeff.
Yeah.
can't remember if I told you this or if I only told Washington this, that when I talked to Jeff Feltman this morning, he had a new name for the UN guy, Robert Seri. Did I write you that this morning?
Yeah,
okay.
I saw that.
He's now gotten both Seri and Ban Ki-moon to agree that Seri could come in Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
So that would be great, I think, to help glue this thing and have the UN help glue it. And, fuck the EU.
No, exactly. And I think we've got to do something to make it stick together, because you can be pretty sure that if it does start to gain altitude, the Russians will be working behind the scenes to try to torpedo it. And again, the fact that this is out there right now, I'm still trying to figure out in my mind why Yanukovych did that. But in the meantime, there's a Party of Regions faction meeting going on right now, and I'm sure there's a lively argument going on in that group at this point. But anyway, we could land Jelly side up on this one if we move fast. So let me work on Klitschko, and if you can just keep, I think we want to try to get somebody with an international personality to come out here and help to midwife this thing. And then the other issue is some kind of outreach to Yanukovych, but we probably regroup on that tomorrow as we see how things start to fall into place.
So on that piece, Jeff, when I wrote the note, Sullivan's come back to me, VFR, saying you need Biden, and I said probably tomorrow for an attaboy and to get the deets to stick. So
okay.
Biden's willing.
Okay, great.
All right.
Thanks.
Now, I don't think that is unequivocal proof, certainly big piece of evidence. But the politicians are also unipolar in terms of what they're allowed to say, that they're going to lie. And I'm sure the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? I mean, Republicans down there are saying, oh, look, it's going to get a Democrats, everything's a regime change. And the Democrats are saying, no, what are you talking about? That's just nothing but a lie. And they blow that entire phone call off as nothing. It's just a big nothing burger. No, it's not. It's something. It's a something burger. But exactly what is it? Did they ever find any more evidence? Yeah, and dribs and drabs, but not much. 10% for the big guy. Biden's involvement in Ukraine. Hunter Biden's involvement in Ukraine. Sure, there's a lot of dirty dealings going on in Ukraine. Never mind possible biolabs. Tulsi Gabbard confirmed that. There are biolabs in Ukraine. Or was it somebody else? I think it was Tulsi Gabbard. So we know that much. Maybe that's where they're hiding the gold. Why is Ukraine so vital to NATO, to the EU, to Canada? It's not so much to the United States any longer. But to us, we just gave $2 more billion of our dollars. Why? And if Pierre Poilievre were in power, he'd be doing the exact same thing. Here's an article from Stormhaven Media. Stormhaven Media is run by this guy, William Ray. I'm not sure if you guys know him. He looks kind of like a crazy man, doesn't he? William Ray is a former member of the Canadian Forces. He was with the 2nd Battalion PPCLI in Croatia in 1993 when they were awarded both the Governor General of Canada's Unit Commendation and the United Nations Secretary General citation. I'm sure he's not so proud of that these days, for halting ethnic cleansing in the Medak area. He started as a journalist with community radio and writing articles. In 2009, he began working with CUTV in Montreal. And during the student strikes and subsequent social unrest, he helped manage the live stream ground teams. So here he is, writing on his website, Stormhaven Media, this article. Liberal support of fascism in Ukraine is the danger to Canadians, not Russia. So this might be a little bit tough to follow. We're going to bounce around on this one and try and read it as he wrote it. As always, follow the links, do your own research. Believing random folks on the internet got you here, he says, and here sucks. When I refer to fascists in this piece, I don't mean people who misgender others. I mean people who support corporate-controlled collectivist nightmare states and will commit any evil to achieve them. The Trudeau Liberals being an excellent example. This is obviously an older piece. As the pandemic narrative comes apart, We're being led by the nose towards a cataclysmic war with the Russian people. Rhetoric about Russian aggression that hasn't been popular since my youth in the 1980s is now being spoon-fed to the population by controlled press. The emergency, dear reader, is never meant to end. Canadians have urgent reason to disrupt this narrative and end Canada's military involvement in Ukraine. I say this because as a Canadian soldier, I worked with Russian soldiers in the Balkans in the early 1990s peacekeeping. So I can tell you directly, every one of them is viscerally aware of the ocean blood their Rodinia or motherland suffered at the hands of fascists and what they know is the Great Patriotic War. They will never allow it to happen again. Russian military doctrine since World War II is absolutely centered around fighting future wars on someone else's territory. Every Russian general and politician accepts this as received truth. No force must ever be allowed to enter their borders again. General nuclear war being a more acceptable alternative in their view, the Russian people see NATO as the aggressive actor in Europe in the last decades, building a wall of member states around Russian borders and building up increasing numbers of international troops and equipment there. In 1997, in the Founding Act on Mutual Relations Cooperation and Security between NATO and the Russian Federation and other agreements, a weakened Russia was forced to accept eastward NATO expansion with strict promises of no troop deployment. There was supposed to be consultation and agreement. We stated and still state that Russia is against the expansion of NATO, but considering some historical and world realities, the menace of the expansion of the bloc to our country must be brought to a minimum or excluded altogether. Russian President Boris Yeltsin said that in May of 1997. NATO's push east in 1999 brought the Czech Republic, Hungary, and Poland into the Western sphere. In 2004, despite repeated warnings by the Russians, NATO coerced even more states through massive economic incentives. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, once actual parts of the Soviet Union, Bulgaria, Romania, Slovakia, and Slovenia closed the wall around Russia. Some of these had been members of the Soviet Union or Russian-controlled territory for generations before that. United States and its European allies share most of the responsibility for the crisis. The taproot of the trouble is NATO enlargement, the central element of a larger strategy to move Ukraine out of Russia's orbit and integrate it into the West. At the same time, the EU's expansion eastward and the West's backing off or backing of the pro-democracy movement in Ukraine, beginning with the Orange Revolution in 2004, were critical elements too. Since the mid-1990s, Russian leaders have adamantly opposed NATO enlargement, and in recent years, they have made it clear that they would not stand by while their strategically important neighbor turned into a Western bastion. For Putin, the illegal overthrow of Ukraine's democratically elected and pro-Russian president, which he rightly labeled a coup, was the final straw. He responded by taking Crimea, a peninsula he feared would host a NATO naval base, and working to destabilize Ukraine until it abandoned its efforts to join the West. This is Liberal Prime Minister Mackenzie King in 1937, but that's later down the road here. Canada's elites in the Liberal Party has a history of supporting and nurturing actual fascism in Ukraine, stretching back to the closing moments of World War II and the importation of the Ukrainian Galician Battle, a battalion of the SS approved by Prime Minister King's Liberal government. Since coming to power in 2015, the Liberals, they've used Canadian military resources to prop up the fascist regime that took power in Kyiv after the Soros/US State Department maiden coup in 2014. Now we're being asked to believe that Vladimir Putin is planning Russian Federation forces to attack Western Europe. A recent large annual Russian military exercise carried out deep within its own borders was touted by the controlled Western media, the buildup to a Russian invasion. We don't need to read that part. Let's begin with who we're supporting in Ukraine and how they actually came to power, and then delve into the long history of liberal support for foisting fascism on the Ukrainian people. That's Liberal Melanie Joly meeting with the Ukrainian military officials in January of 2022. Western regime change in Ukraine in our era kicked off in 2004 with the George Soros/U.S. State Department coup branded the Orange Revolution, one of the first manufactured color revolutions in Europe. In 2004, the Western-backed candidate Viktor Yushchenko, who favored joining the EU and NATO membership, was defeated by Viktor Yanukovych, who favored a more neutral position with a leaning towards Russia. Yushchenko loudly and repeatedly accused Russian-sponsored rigging of the vote, a true forerunner of the U.S. Russiagate hoax perpetrated on U.S. President Donald Trump. Interestingly, one of the Western intelligence agents involved in the 2014 maiden coup was Christopher Steele of the Steele dossier fame. The American National Endowment for Democracy prepackaged revolution machine then went to work and packed Kyiv's Maidan Square with demonstrators until they forced a runoff vote. After untold millions were poured into the campaign by the U.S. government-funded non-governmental organizations, there was no shock when Yushchenko and his Western friend... That sounds like USAID, doesn't it? By the U.S. government-funded non-governmental organizations. No shock when Yushchenko and his Western-friendly oligarchs won the recount. This was seen correctly by the Russians as a form of soft power putsch. Ukraine's position as Russia's gateway to Europe for its massive natural gas reserves made this a bitter pill. The current regime in Ukraine was put in place in a Western-backed coup against the elected government in 2014, branded as the Maiden Spring. Victoria Nuland, who served as Deputy National Security Advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney and Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs in the Biden administration since 2021, Assistant Secretary of State for European and Eurasian Affairs in the Barack Obama administration, can be heard, we just played for you, in discussion with who they will install as the new government. Wow, that's insane. In 2015, the Canadian Uniparty, then being led by Stephen Harper, sent Canadian forces into Ukraine to train the Ukraine Army and National Guard, which includes a host of private oligarch-funded militias. The incoming Trudeau Liberals have maintained and expanded these programs massively to the point they began extensive contacts with the Azov Battalion. And in September of 2020, Canada's JTF-2 Special Forces Regiment joined Joint Task Force Ukraine. These forces may already be engaging in combat in the Donbass. Now that we know hasn't happened. The Azov Battalion isn't the North American woke version of neo-Nazis that misgender people. These are hardened private mercenaries, documented committing... Now, since then, apparently, they've been integrated into the Ukraine forces, but who knows what's real and what's not these days with the propaganda flying around. They're hardened private mercenaries documented committing war crimes. This unit traces its history to the Ukrainian Galicia Battalion of the Nazi SS. I think one of them was in the House of Commons not too long ago. Guilty of brutal war crimes in the Second World War. John Loftus, former U.S. Justice Department investigator, famous for uncovering the Nazi rat lines in Operation Paperclip, gave us a glimpse behind the curtain at the fate of the fanatical Galicia members. You would be forgiven at this point for imagining that the next paragraph involves war crimes trials. Pending discussions with the Canadian government to absorb them as immigrants, despite the Home Office's UK suspicion that some of these men really might be war criminals. The Canadian government turned a blind eye completely, as did much of the elite Canadian society, mirroring today. Meet one of Chrystia Freeland's mentors, Pete Saverin. During World War II, he belonged to the Waffen-SS Galician Division. He immigrated from Ukraine in 1949, attended the University of Alberta. He was a partner in the law firm Saverin & Saverin. He was married to Olga Prestchecki, with whom he had 3 children. Saverin served as Chancellor of the University of Alberta from 82 to 86 and was also involved with the University Board of Governors and Senate. He was awarded an honorary degree in 1987 from the University of Alberta, named to the Order of Canada that year. He was also president of the Progressive Conservative Association of Alberta, died April 6, 2017. This largely unknown part of Canadian history was flashed briefly into public view. The words Nazi War Monument are seen on the memorial to the 1st Ukrainian Division of the Ukrainian National Army in St. Volodymyr Ukrainian Cemetery in Oakville, Ontario. Police are apologizing for saying they had launched a hate crime investigation into a vandalized memorial in Oakville, Ontario cemetery that's been linked to the Nazis. Wow. This goes really deep, you guys. If you want to check it out, stormhaven.me.wordpress.com. I know that's a lot. Let me put it into the... because we've got other things to cover tonight, and I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm fully aware of the boo-boo I made last night, not covering this in depth enough when I should have, and I wanted to make amends tonight. So I went and did some digging, and I found a lot of really good stuff. Now, of course, you know, the left-wing corporate media deny, right? That's what they do. And of course, the liberals deny. But notice that nobody ever really pushed Chrystia Freeland on her ties with the Nazis. And to even mention it was blasphemy. You were shouted down if you said anything. Even conservatives would do it. Canada eyes deeper energy ties with Germany. Carney is still over in Europe, and today he met with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. And a German reporter asked Carney today. He said, listen, I'm not sure what you can do for Germany given the lack of pipeline infrastructure you guys have. Here's Carney's response.
Minister, just one question about raw materials. Could you please explore a bit more what Canada can realistically actually offer to Germany and Europe, given the fact that ports on the East Coast and also pipelines are still lacking?
Okay, you're welcome to take the second part of my question if you wish. Thanks for the question. Look, there's a huge range of immediate opportunities with respect to critical metals and minerals. And there are medium-term opportunities with respect to all forms of energy, including LNG and hydrogen. And I'll quickly explain how we make those happen. Our government is in the process of unleashing $500 billion of investment in energy infrastructure, port infrastructure, particularly intelligence infrastructure as well, with AI. And a number of those investments, the first of which we will be formally announcing in the next 2 weeks, are with respect to new port infrastructure. And some of the examples in the public domain will include from reinforcing and building on the Port of Montreal, Contrecoeur, a new port effectively in Churchill, Manitoba, which would open up enormous LNG plus other opportunities and other East Coast ports for those critical metals and minerals. So there is a lot happening. It's the number one focus of this government is to build that infrastructure, and particularly infrastructure that helps us deepen our partnership with our European partners, and particularly.
Did he say anything about natural gas and oil? Or was it strictly about critical minerals, which he signed a deal with Germany about today? Critical minerals. Let's see, what else do we get? Critical minerals partnership with Germany today that encourages the joint public financing of natural resources projects as Ottawa works to boost development and exports to Europe. But nothing that I can see here about natural gas or oil, which is exactly what we have in abundance, but we can't get it to them. Because we're just not a real country. Are we being controlled by the cabal? A lot of us point the finger. World Economic Forum, right? It's always about Klaus Schwab, or it used to be when he was the chairman of the World Economic Forum. He's no longer the chairman, even though they cleared him all wrongdoing just a couple of weeks ago. But there are other people that are just as bad. You guys know Whitney Webb? of all the reporters out there who dig single stories and spend weeks and weeks and weeks on them before actually publishing them and then talking about them, she is probably number one on that list. And here she is talking about the oligarchs, the cabal, the World Economic Forum.
World Economic Forum for a second, and what it is and what it's not. They describe themselves as the premier promoter of public-private partnerships. For lack of a better word, that is fascism. So then you have the family history of Klaus Schwab, that his father ran a Nazi model company and funded the atomic bomb and all of that, and just very complicated stuff there. And you basically have him being in this position where he's promoting, fascism on a global
I mean, he's
a
white kitty cat away from being a James Bond supervillain.
Well, but I think that's, they want everyone to focus on him and think that it's just him and just the World Economic Forum. There's other organizations that are promoting this too. And also a lot of the, the Young Global Leader program, that's not exclusive to the World Economic Forum. There's lots of other institutions with similar agendas, but there's an obvious effort by powerful interests to stop nationalist politicians from reaching the highest level. I wrote an article in 2020 about the National Security Commission on Artificial Intelligence. They basically say that in order to be competitive in artificial intelligence and secure economic and military hegemony for the United States, we have to go beyond China in terms of their implementation of surveillance technology, the use of artificial intelligence, moving away from private car ownership, which they refer to as a legacy system, in-person doctor visits, to the AI-powered alternative. This was in 2019, before COVID. COVID comes along.
2 years before that, I talked to the chairman of the board at General Motors, and he told me by 2030, we won't be making cars as you know them today. We'll be making fleets.
Yeah,
because people
it's
won't
Uber.
Be having,
it's Ubers you rent and you can't control where they go,
correct.
And they're only going to be in the smart cities. You're not going between cities anymore. No more road trips. No more, you decide, I want to go over here today. I want to drive 3 hours to see my family or whoever, my friends. That's over if these people win.
That's over if these people win. So are they going to win? No, they're not going to win. I don't say that smugly. I do say it with some confidence, though. I believe we're going to have to go through some serious pain before we get that victory. This is not going to be an easy win. But we are going to win. The question is, what happens after? That's what I've been asking for quite some time now. It's been a very long time. What happens after? Do we just blindly march because we're going to be tired? We're going to be beat up. We're going to be sore. Like Rocky Balboa after fighting Apollo Creed in the hospital. Yo, Apollo, did you give me your best? Yeah, man. Thank you. Now we know we're getting their best. These guys have pulled out all their stops, but it doesn't seem to be working. There's a fly in the ointment for them. What is that fly? Is it Donald Trump? Some people say no. Or maybe it's Donald Trump, but others also say that Trump is working for another cabal. And maybe there's a couple of other cabals out there as well. You see, what we're dealing with here is dozens and dozens of oligarchs, billionaires, multi-billionaires who are running the show. And imagine the egos on these people and trying to get them all in agreement on the same thing. I don't think so. Is climate change, is net zero even a real thing? Or is it just a distraction? Of course it's a distraction. It's not real. But because they've spent so long indoctrinating people into this worldview, we have to somehow find a way to deprogram them in much less time. And that is not easy. And we should have seen it coming. We should have seen it coming. But is this whole thing sustainable? That's what I want to know. I don't think it is. Our friend Wayne Peters over at What's Up Canada says insanity is not sustainable. And I agree with him. Our friend Dan McTeague wrote a guest piece in the Western Standard. Yes, I know we're having trouble on the website tonight, you guys. I'm going to get that fixed as soon as possible. Dan says, net zero Carney's going to build new pipelines? I'll believe it when I see it. He's not building new pipelines. He is not building. Anybody out there who believes that this guy is building new pipelines, I've got some land in the Arctic Circle to sell you. Ever since Mark Carney's rise to power, people have been trying to sell me, Dan says, on the idea that he's just what this country needs, a supposedly practical, no-nonsense businessman who can clean up the mess his highly ideological predecessor, Justin Trudeau, left us in. To reinforce this claim, they point to the constant rumblings about Carney's commitment to building new oil and gas pipelines in Canada. I'm sorry, folks, Dan says, but I'll believe it when I see it. Now, building new pipelines is an understandably popular idea. Construction alone would be a serious job creator. New pipelines would enable us to further capitalize on our abundant natural resources. They would pump up the domestic oil and gas supply, bringing down the cost of energy for families and businesses alike, thereby invigorating our economy and fortifying the loonie. Our dollar has been tied to oil for quite some time, and if we're not producing any, the dollar sinks. They would also reinforce national unity at a time when that's being sorely tested. Green propaganda has created an increasingly widened ideological divide over the resource sector, still the backbone of our economy. Our thriving activist class are happy to exploit these divisions and to do whatever they can to kill new resource projects before they get off the ground, tying themselves to train tracks and such. Over time, this has made it just plain easier to sell Canadian fossil fuels to the U.S., which has been happy to take them off our hands. Make no mistake, if we made good use of this period of unfortunately high tensions with our cousins to the south, and really they're not, it's a media thing and a Carney thing, a liberal thing. By beefing up our energy infrastructure and fortifying our economy, which would ultimately make us a more attractive trading partner, I'd be all for it, Dan says. Remember, he's a former Liberal MP. That said, anyone who believes that Carney is fully committed to new pipelines should revisit what he's actually said on the matter. They'd discover that he's been talking out of both sides of his mouth on pipelines since the moment he stepped out from behind the curtain and publicly took the reins of the Liberal Party. He's been purposely out west and explicitly reassuring when speaking to anti-pipeline crowds elsewhere, saying things like, I would never impose a pipeline on Quebec, quote, unquote. Which should surprise no one. Mark Carney is still Mark Carney, from his banking career to his time at the mega firm Brookfield, from his role as the UN Special Envoy for Climate Leadership and Finance to founding the now collapsed Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero. It's not completely collapsed. It's lost a lot of money, but it's still there lurking. He has spent his entire career working towards a net zero global economy, no matter how disastrous this would be for the world generally and Canada specifically. Carney himself described his magnum opus, GFONS, as being relentlessly, ruthlessly, absolutely focused on the transition to net zero. The same could be said about Carney himself, which is to say, though he's more sophisticated, Carney is no less of a green ideologue than Justin Trudeau. But, I can hear people saying, he saved us from the carbon tax. To which I answer, no, he did not. A longtime apostle of carbon taxation generally and of Trudeau's carbon tax specifically. Carney's main issue with the carbon tax was that it had become too divisive, meaning we had noticed its effect on our lives and started complaining about it. So to fix that, he used what amounted to an accounting trick to hide it from our view. Meanwhile, he remains committed to all of his party's environmentalist legislation and regulations, including the Clean Fuel Standard, which jacks up the ethanol content of our gasoline while progressively raising the price per liter. Bill C-48, the Oil Tanker Moratorium Act, which significantly reduces our ability to export our natural resources. Bill C-59, which bans businesses from touting the environmental positives of their work if it doesn't meet a government-approved standard, whatever that is. And their egregious electric vehicle mandate, which forces us to buy, starting next year, cars which are poorly suited for our climate, geography, and lifestyle, and for which we simply do not have the infrastructure. And most pertinent to this discussion, Mark Carney remains committed to Bill C-69, the No More Pipelines Act, which even the Supreme Court said overstepped the federal government's constitutional authority. So, despite all of their advantages, Mark Carney's decades of net zero commitments make the chances of us actually getting a single new pipeline out of this government extremely remote, probably non-existent. I'd love to be wrong. I don't think I am. Dan McTague, President for Canadians for Affordable Energy. Even with all of that, look at this, the federal green subsidy program, not expected to come close to reaching its goals. Because nobody wants it. You can only sustain something artificially with money for so long, kind of like the trans movement. When you take their money away, they're nothing. They go back to being far less than 1% of the population. And their voices, while loud now, will turn into a squeaking mouse when you take their money away, because they are not the norm. They're mentally ill. They're mentally ill. And for us to accept that mental illness is not doing them or anybody else any good. The Low Carbon Economy Fund was meant to support projects that reduce greenhouse gas emissions and create green jobs. Let's see exactly how far off the mark they are here. This is a few days old now. Despite twice moving the goalposts, a pricey green subsidy program won't come close to meeting its target, says an internal report. The Internal Department of Environment report evaluating the Low Carbon Economy Fund, a 2016 government program. Let me stop this. Meant to support projects that reduce greenhouse gas emissions and create jobs, concluded the program wasn't living up to potential from Blacklock's. Higher than expected project delays, cancellations, withdrawals impacted the program's ability to meet established greenhouse gas reduction targets within planned timelines. This is all bullshit. It's all a complete snow job. It is the worst lie. Nobody's meeting any of these targets anywhere, but people are getting rich, and we suffer. Because as has been said in Canada over and over and over again for the past several years, pay a tax, it's going to fix the weather. A robust uncertainty analysis could help to ensure that at least some of these challenges are integrated into the analysis used to estimate a project's emissions reduction. The program, you can't measure it because there's no way to do that. They don't know what mankind's contribution to the greenhouse gas emissions even is. Then how on earth can they be expected to figure out how much they're reducing? It's absurd. The program was granted a $2 billion budget upon its 2016 launch before it was expanded to $2.2 billion, but delays, cancellations, and the continued failure of its project saw those funds slashed to just $820 million. The program had aimed to cut emissions by 10 million tons by 2030, but that goal was lowered to 7 million and then later to 3.9 million, and they're still not going to meet that, not even close. Job creation targets likewise lowered from 115,000 by 2030 to just 34,500. It's ridiculous. And look at this. In the country's greenest province, support for EV mandates softening in British Columbia. It's according to a poll. British Columbians increasingly souring on federal and provincial electric vehicle mandates, a new poll says. The Ipsos poll commissioned by the Energy Futures Institute found that 56% of respondents opposed EV mandates. That's up 3 points from last year, while just 34% supported them. That is a clear majority. In British Columbia, we've gone on embarking on the most aggressive electric vehicle mandates in all of North America before we have the infrastructure to support it, said Energy Futures Institute Chief Barry Penner. And British Columbians are starting to wake up to that reality that, hey, you're saying I have to buy an electric vehicle even if I can't afford it? How can people be so stupid? British Columbia's EV mandate requires at least 26% of the 2026 model year sales to be zero emission. That rises to 90% for 2030. And then finally, by 2035, it's 100%. The Canadian Energy Regulator's latest market snapshot shows ZEVs accounting for just 16.5% of new registrations in 2024, down nearly 23% from the year prior. And the capper, that's the story about GFAN's unraveling. It's still there. It's not what it was, that thing that was started by Mark Carney in Scotland a few years ago. It's not nearly as terrifying as it used to be, but it's still there. China is burning coal at record levels in 2025. And nobody says anything about that. They've expanded their use of coal energy more in the first half of 2025 than at any time in the past 9 years. The spike comes despite massive renewable capacity and threatens climate goals. Because they don't care. China doesn't care. They don't care. That's funny. So you tell me then, is Carney's climate scam falling apart bit by bit by bit? Pressure's on, man. We know all the automakers do not want these EV mandates. They've met with Carney. They've told him to his face, don't do this. Now the people are starting to speak up, and they're getting louder and louder. Excuse me, Mr. Prime Minister, how can you help Germany with oil and gas when you have no pipelines? It's about minerals, rare earth. Here's another one. If you want to talk about this whole elbows up thing, I know you're probably sick of it, but this is from Sam Cooper from the Bureau. You can find his stuff at thebureau.news on Substack. Canada's fentanyl czar. We still have one of those, man. Trudeau appointed him before he quit. He reportedly told U.S. officials, I have no authority. I'm just a smokescreen, man. I was never meant to really do anything. I'm token. Fentanyl czar. I don't have any real responsibilities here. U.S. officials say Canada's fentanyl czar admitted having no authority over RCMP, undermining Carney's assurances of historic border measures. All right, let's check out a bit of this story here. Ottawa's newly appointed fentanyl czar told U.S. officials in Ottawa he has no authority to influence Canadian federal police or border agencies, according to an official with knowledge of the relevant meetings. For U.S. enforcement experts, the admission underlined what they describe as the emptiness of Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney's high-profile pledges to crack down on transnational fentanyl production and trafficking by Chinese and Mexican syndicates, and underscored systemic failures in Canada's response to cartels exploiting the nation's ports, borders, and infrastructure. That's what Trump wanted at the beginning of all this. You guys got to crack down on this human trafficking and the drugs. It's crazy. Oh, there's no drugs. We're not importing any drugs to you. You're making them. You're bringing in the components for this. You got this for the drugs from China. You've got the super labs in the mountains in BC, and then you bring them in. And by the way, you can only report what you catch. And I guess these guys are pretty good at hiding what they're bringing in from Canada to the United States and other countries. Borders I never had any real authority. I never had any real, I couldn't really do anything. Oh, hey, here's some good news. And we also have an interesting piece from James O'Keefe coming up for you in just a second. From the Canadian Constitution Foundation, court grants CCF standing to challenge Nova Scotia travel ban, which is still in effect, by the way. Our friend Jeff Evely was ticketed $28,000 for walking into the woods, which he's going to fight with the help of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. He's got a court date next month, and then they're going to make it a constitutional case, which means they're going to have to bump it, probably not be heard until next year. But James O'Keefe has gone to Nova Scotia and walked in the woods. This is kind of a cool piece. Check it out.
O'Keefe with OMG, and this is walking into the Canada woods on purpose for a $25,000 fine. There it is right there. Stay out of the woods. $25,000 fine. Oh, there's a DSLR worker. There's a worker right there.
What happens if we go in there? $3,000 fine.
We don't have anything to start a fire, though.
Doesn't matter. You want to break the law,
So here in Nova Scotia, they've actually banned hiking due to a burn ban. They're going to fine you $25,000 for going hiking in Canada. Let's see what happens. There's also a bunch of Karens walking along the boardwalk. A lot of snitches. Snitches get stitches.
I saw these two gentlemen. They're gone in the woods. They have backpacks.
Okay, I'll send the officers over here shortly. Thanks for calling.
All right, thank you.
Cape Breton Regional Police, just arrived.
So we've arrived in Nova Scotia, Canada, and we're driving down the highway, and it says stay out of the woods, and then it says it's a burn ban, $25,000 fine. If you go into the woods, we are going into the woods. So the man, Jeff, actually did this, and I thought about doing this, but then I saw Jeff's story, and I figured, hey, I should do that.
We issue $25,000 fines for going in the woods.
I'm just going to make this as painless as I can for those guys.
And the fine is $28,872.50.
We'll see whether the local authorities enforce this absurd law, which is a violation of human rights and human dignity. We have no fire starters on us. Nothing can start a fire. I do have my trekking poles, my backpacks, and my hidden cameras. Unless they arrest me, which we're in Canada, so it's certainly possible. But we're here in the woods. It's a very overcast day. It's going to rain. So the question is, are they going to give us a $25,000 ticket while it's raining? Okay, so we've been in the woods for about 5 minutes, and there's a good chance that someone's going to snitch on us. No, there's actually a snitch line where Canadians rat on other Canadians if they see hikers. Apparently, somebody snitched on us.
I just have a little concern. Is this the number that you call if people are like hiking or like in the woods then they're not supposed to be?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm at Petersfield in Westmount, and I saw these two gentlemen. They're gone in the woods. They have backpacks. They have these poles, like the trekking poles, I believe they're called.
I feel like we're smuggling contraband into Canada.
The one guy, he's tall, probably about 6'2". He's wearing like some bluish gray pants, navy blue long sleeve. It's just ridiculous. Like clearly they're not supposed to be in there. Like
Yeah, no, I guess it doesn't get that rain. Any vehicles or anything, do you know?
I don't know. I like saw them walking in there and they had like backpacks and stuff. So
Yeah.
So
Okay, I'll send the officers over here shortly. Thanks for calling.
all right, thank you.
Cape Breton Regional Police, just arrived.
They apparently haven't banned bird houses here. Like, are they a burn hazard? Oh wait, we have an update. Yes. Jeff.
The cop just left.
He just left. The cop just left?
Yes, they left.
This is how much they care about our woods, James.
This is how. So they've abandoned mission?
Yeah.
So they call the cops. The cops come, and apparently the cops walked in a little bit, kind of gave up, and left 10 minutes later. So we were expecting to get fined $25,000. There has been no fine, but there are some Department of Natural Resources people. We're going to keep walking along this path and see what else happens. What is the difference between these woods and the woods back there? Don't know. Couldn't tell you. We're almost out of here, but we're not out of the woods yet.
There's some the routes are blocked off. You'll see the tape across it.
But we can be here on
Yes,
this
you
path.
can be here on this trail.
What's the difference between this trail and that trail?
That's a good question.
Do you know if they're snitching on people?
Don't know that either.
They're calling the police and stuff like that.
Are they?
I heard about that.
Oh, I never heard that.
Again, this is just as dense as the other. Oh, there's DSR worker. There's a worker right there. There's a worker right there. Hey there. Do you know where the bands are for hiking? We're not allowed to go in there. What happens if we go in there? $3,000 fine. $25,000? That's a lot of money. What's the reason? Fires? We don't have anything to start a fire though.
Doesn't matter. You want to break the law,
Talk to Trump about breaking the law? Not a, yeah, he's a lawbreaker, right? All right, have a good day. Definitely not a fan of Donald Trump up here in Nova Scotia, Canada. Trump didn't shut down the forest. There's our car. We only have about 200 yards left to go. Let's get the fuck out of here. James O'Keefe here in Canada. What do you do when the agencies sworn to protect you are doing bad things in secret? You expose it. You expose it often through a FOIA request. That's Freedom of Information Act. At O'Keefe Academy, o'keefemediagroup.com, we're offering a new course this coming month on how to file FOIA requests, how to get the footage off of the police officers' body cameras. We've done that dozens of times, and we'll teach you how to do it. How do you get the course? Subscribe to O'Keefe Media Group. Subscribe to OMG at o'keefemediagroup.com. This is James O'Keefe in Canada, exposing what's happening here. Stay tuned. Assuming that peeing in the woods is also a $25,000 fine. We're not exactly sure where the perimeter of the woods is. So we are traipsing on that line like Johnny Cash. Walking the line, as they say. Is that the woods? Is this the woods? We're not sure the point of egress here. So I'm peeing very quickly so I don't get spotted on. Because we know they have a hotline to tattle.
Oh, that's so embarrassing. That's so embarrassing because you know how many millions of Americans that guy reaches? Millions. Joe Rogan's been talking about it. And somehow there are Canadians who just don't see it as ridiculous. How can that even be? Or are they just too scared to speak up about it? By the way, the website is back up. We had a power bump glitch, weird thing, connection problem happen, but we're back up on the website for all you all access folks who enjoy watching on the website. And obviously the extension is going to be there tonight as well. What fell from the sky exactly 35 years ago in Washington State? What fell from the sky 3 years ago? It's not rain. Looks like rain, but it's not. It's this gelatinous blob stuff. We're going to explore that on the extension tonight. And you're not even going to believe what they found when they tested this stuff. One more thing with Canada, actually a couple more things with Canada. Dr. William Mack is vilifying Danielle Smith repeatedly. Now, Danielle, I don't believe, has said anything dumb lately or done anything dumb lately. The opinion on Danielle Smith in Alberta amongst the Alberta sovereignty crowd, which is vast, is quite split, actually. Some believe that she is with them. Others believe she's a nationalist. And, you know, they're not going to know until she's forced to show her hand. The NDP, the media, they've been trying to get her to show her hand by calling her out as a separatist. She says, no, I'm not a separatist. I want a sovereign Alberta in a united Canada. And I'm sure you've heard me say this over and over again. What the hell does that even mean? But here's Dr. Mackus vilifying Danielle Smith. I think this is more of a bureaucracy thing, but Let's go ahead and read this. This is from Dr. Makis's Substack, and he does very important work. So I don't want to sell anything he says or does short. And maybe we'll bring him back on the show so he can clarify his position when he points a finger directly at Alberta's premier. Court of King's Bench has forced Alberta Premier Danielle Smith's government to return the $45,000 they stole from my Stripe account. And there's the check. So he says here, as many of you know, Danielle Smith's government has been extorting and threatening my family in their efforts to bankrupt me and eliminate the cancer patients I'm helping. And the timeline of this extortion, he says, I have the largest ivermectin cancer clientele in the world and have been helping stage 4 cancer patients since July of last year. August of last year, Danielle Smith's bureaucrats, sent Edmonton police to my house on a Sunday afternoon to intimidate my wife and children. Then in November, Danielle Smith's AHS lawyers threatened to have me imprisoned for 83 days once Danielle Smith secured her political future at the November 2nd UCP AGM. Then in December, Danielle Smith's AHS lawyers filed court documents to have me imprisoned for 83 days and demanded $10,000 and $45,792 in extortion payments. In January, Danielle Smith's AHS team quietly filed in court to have my Stripe account frozen and raided for $142,824 without informing him. February 16th, Danielle Smith's AHS lawyers hired a team to hack his X account and delete all references to cancer and ivermectin. That's got to be illegal, no? In March, his Stripe account was frozen. $200,000 GiveSendGo was also frozen, and he was informed Danielle Smith's team would steal $142,824 from his Stripe. Then in March, a series of things threatened to make a $45,792 payment within 24 hours, or he keeps mentioning Danielle Smith repeatedly. Does she even know about this, I wonder? Has she been questioned on any of this? Has anybody talked to her about Dr. William Makis? I know Sean Newman sometimes has the premier on his show. Has he ever asked her? Is that question off limits? Anyway, getting to the bottom of this, they have returned the money to Dr. Makis upon the order of a judge. So we will definitely keep you posted on that. In the meantime, what is Danielle Smith? I mean, the other night she was quoted as saying, hey man, if you don't want to get shot or beat up, then don't break into other people's houses. And now here she is talking about Alberta's future, I guess a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. Listen to what she has to say regarding possibly emulating what Quebec does.
When you look at what are we talking about here today, we're talking about all the things that Quebec is already doing. And that is the question, is do we want to become more like Quebec in managing our own affairs? So a gentleman asked, yeah. So a gentleman asked, what is the difference today? Well, the difference is today is we're bigger. Maybe we couldn't have had this conversation when we had 1.5 million population. Maybe we couldn't have even had it when we had a 3 million population. Maybe we couldn't have had it when we were only generating $20 billion in revenue. Well, maybe we can have it now that we're generating $75 billion in revenue. One of the things I would ask you to just consider, because I think we have a different interpretation on some of the historical developments. When I look at Rupert's Land and then Northwest Territories and then Alberta, when I look at the increasing numbers of areas of jurisdiction Quebec has taken over, that is responsible government. That as you develop the means to take care of your own affairs, then you start taking care of more of your own affairs. Are we at that point now? That's what we're asking about. It may not have been the right time 20 years ago when this conversation started. It may not have even been the right time 10 years ago, but is the right time now? I think it is. And looking forward to seeing what you have to say about it. So thank you.
So what does that say to you? Is she a nationalist or is she a sovereignist? She's not showing her hand. Now, I'm seeing a lot of comments here. I trust Dr. Makis before I trust Danielle. Well, that's not the question. The question is, does Danielle Smith know about this? Does she even know about this? I mean, and I'm not defending Believe me, I'm just wondering, as a premier, you've got probably about 50 balls in the air all at once. You're not worried about one case that the Crown attorneys are working on. Has it been brought to her attention? I don't know. And that's why I'm asking, has anybody asked her that? Has anybody seen any other podcast with Danielle Smith on it where she's been asked directly, do you know what's going on with AHS and Dr. William Mackes? I haven't seen one. I've looked, and I have not been able to find anything. So for Dr. Mackes, and I tell this to his face. He's been on the show several times, and I would say, Doc, like, why are you pointing the finger directly at Danielle Smith all the time? You should be pointing it at AHS and the head of AHS, maybe, because they're bureaucrats. Having said that, Danielle Smith, well, her office has appointed them. But how bad is the rot in the bureaucracy? I understand there's still several NDP staffers in there who are constantly subverting what Smith and the government wants to do. That's what happens. That's the deep state. These people slow walk orders from government to implement them. Slow walk until maybe they never get done. And who gets blamed? The politician, always the politician. And again, I know it sounds like I'm defending politicians. And I guess I am to some extent here. And I understand ultimately they are responsible. I get that, believe me. But the bureaucracy has a lot to do with it. And Alberta is a special case, man. And the reason for that is because so much has already been exposed in Alberta, more than any other province, I would say. And that's why we're seeing all of this. But the question remains, does she know about it? And if she did, could she do anything about it? Remember, it's an active court case now. If she sticks her nose in there, she's violating Canadian law, kind of like Justin Trudeau when he was interfering in the SNC Lavalin thing. You can't. At least you shouldn't if you're an honest politician. All right. We mentioned Donald J. Trump a while back, and I found a great piece today by respected historian, classicist. His name is Victor Davis Hanson. And in this piece, and he's a great speaker. I'm sure you guys have seen some stuff by him. And his knowledge of history is vast. He talks about what Donald Trump has achieved, where so many others have failed. Watch.
Revolution in some 90 years. We have not seen any president try to radically change the political calculus and the nature of government since FDR did it from the left during the New Deal of the mid-1930s. And what do I mean by that? Donald Trump closed the border. Nobody thought he could. He closed it. He has now deported over 100,000 criminal illegal aliens, and 1 million have self-deported of all statuses who were here illegally. He's basically declared war on DEI, and he's winning that argument. He has barred biological males from competing in women's sports. He has full public support for doing that, and he's making enormous inroads. The universities are rushing and competing with each other to cut a deal with Donald Trump and to agree to not gouge the federal government on federal grants through their surcharges of way over 40 or 50%, to follow civil rights legislation in the Supreme Court and not discriminate by race or gender as they do in admissions, hiring, promotion, and tenure, and to be disinterested and be fair and follow, as I said, free speech canons and the Bill of Rights on campus. What am I getting at? This isn't that Donald Trump is winning on all of these social and cultural issues. Abroad, we see that Iran no longer poses a nuclear threat for the immediate future, that Israel's enemies, whether Hezbollah or Hamas or Houthis, are in disarray or are severely attrited. Iran is no longer a threat to the Gulf states or Israel, at least for the immediate future, and we see some progress with the Ukrainian war. People are angry about this counter-revolution for two reasons. It's succeeding, and it's succeeding beyond anybody's wild expectation. naysayers, the Wall Street Journal news page said we would be in a recession now. The tariffs would cause a trade war. We would see the stock market collapse. The opposite has happened. $15 trillion of foreign investment promised and $300 billion in tariff revenue anticipated. We don't know the eventual effects of these new tariffs, but for now, all of our economists who predicted gloom and doom were wrong. All of our cultural critics who said the universities would be destroyed by Donald Trump, that he would arrest innocent people who just happened to forget to get a visa, he wouldn't go after criminals, they are wrong too. So people are angry about this counter-revolution because it's working. But there's another reason why they're angry. He's not addressing the symptoms as he did in the first administration. He doesn't have people around him as he did in the first administration. A Rex Tillerson, a Bill Barr, a good man, but a Bill Barr was not on the MAGA agenda. Jim Mattis, people like Anonymous, Omaroso, all of these people who thought that they knew better than Donald Trump, and they would either stop what he was trying to do or reinterpret what he was trying to do. In other words, he has a team that is devoted to his counter-revolution and, more importantly, to the symptoms of the progressive project. The symptoms of the progressive project are not just the Democrats exercising power in Congress or holding the White House. It's how they get that power. And they get that power through PBS and NPR, now defunded. Cable news and slanted network news, now under assault when they lie and defame and face court ramifications. The universities that indoctrinate people, now facing large fines, tax on their endowments, a renewed way of a new government attention toward student loans, $1.7 trillion program, surcharges, as I said, and segregation on campus in dorms, graduation ceremonies. The universities are now under scrutiny. We're seeing the Department of Education itself being questioned. And I mentioned before, in addition to education and the media, Donald Trump is attacking the very idea that residency is synonymous with citizenship. That if you came here illegally, if you reside illegally, then you are eventually going to face a deportation, even if you have not been a violent criminal, and even if not, you haven't been served with deportation papers. So what he's trying to do is tell the American people that the left exercises power even when they do not control government, any branch of government, and they exercise power even though on most of the issues, if not all of them, their constituency is only 40%. The majority of the American people oppose their agenda, and they do this through the bureaucracies, through the media, through the universities, through the popular culture, and these are the very sources that Donald Trump is asking them to reform. And the government is going to shrink. The government's going to get out of the media business. The government's going to take a hard look at universities who want and obtain federal funds, and we're going to see the counter-revolution, I think, succeed. With one caveat, we're going to see in the next year a frenzy, a frantic, almost out of mind reaction from the left, because they know that if this counter-revolution succeeds, it'll be very difficult for them to push down an unpopular agenda down the throat of the American people. So brace yourself. We're looking at the resistance coming up to the counter-revolution, and it's going to be fierce.
It's fierce, he says. I cannot believe how dicked up the world is right now. Where the media is the establishment. Now, years ago, it wasn't. But then, slowly but surely, they were bought. All the radio stations, all the television stations, all the newspapers who used to be independently owned, they were all bought by corporate interests, centralized. United States too. And this is now what we get. In Canada, we're way down that road, the road I was talking about last night. In the United States, it looks like they might have a chance, depending, of course, upon what agenda Donald Trump is following. But we're starting to see signs of resurgence amongst the people of this country. They might be few and far between, let's just say. But we are starting to see it. And it's my hope, and I am praying to God that we start seeing a lot more of this a lot sooner. I was asking God today, I said, look, man, I mean, I know we're going to win and everything, but why are you making this so tough? Like, this is tough, and it's going to get tougher. Like Victor Davis Hanson says there in the next year. I mean, right now we've got Antifa in Portland, Oregon, outside of ICE buildings, like, again, like the George Floyd riots. They're throwing bombs. They're attacking ICE agents with blades. They're being dealt with this time harshly. And I wonder if they're going to get discouraged or they're going to become more defiant. It's interesting. But here in Canada, we've got the Dominion Society of Canada. This is a new organization. Daniel Tyree and Greg Wycliffe started, and they're recruiting membership now. They believe in bringing Canada back to what it used to be, or trying to at the very least. And here's a video that Greg put out just today.
Discussions on renaming Dundas Street and the square began in 2020.
The city of Toronto is celebrating the grand opening of Sankofa Square.
What is Sankofa?
What is Sankofa?
I have no idea.
It's a name that derives from Ghana.
And what does that have to do with Canadians?
Did you know that Canada's unique identity is built on the foundation laid by our Anglo and Franco founders? From Sir John A. Macdonald's vision to the legacy of the United Empire Loyalists, our heritage is what makes us truly Canadian. But today, our history is under attack. Across the country, they're trying to erase our story, renaming streets like Dundas, removing plaques, even before this statue of Sir John A. Macdonald was in a box. Why do these institutions remove things that honor Canadians that built this nation?
The significance of the word Sankofa from the Akan language of Ghana, to go back and get it. And people are going to be getting it tomorrow, aren't they?
All of it.
This isn't just about names, it's about...
Like, do these people have any idea what it is they're doing? We played a movie, essentially, a documentary called What Happened to My Hometown in the Extension last night. People are trying to fight back. It's about White Rock, British Columbia. People are trying to fight back, but it seems like, and we know this to be true, it's intentional what they're doing. They're destroying our country, our institutions, our cities and towns, brick by brick, intentionally. Because you got to tear it down before you can build the new world order, which is what they're doing. And like I said, it's in different stages in different countries. And these media, Sankofa Square from Ghana? What the freak are you even talking about? Like, the town square in the largest city in our country is going to be a word from Ghana? Used to be Dundas Square. Should still be Dundas Square. Let's continue.
Erasing the values, sacrifices, and achievements that define who we are. That's why the Dominion Society of Canada is here, to organize, advocate, and protect what makes Canada, Canada. We believe our history and identity are worth preserving, not rewriting. If you agree, join us and become a member at dominionsociety.ca. and help us keep Canada's heritage alive for future generations. Thank you, and long live Canada.
Dominionsociety.ca. Go to the website. Join up. Even if it's just for newsletters. Dominionsociety.ca. Do you guys remember, I think it was a few years ago, when this was, it seemed like anyway, it was happening all over the place. It was winter. Or maybe it was spring, or late winter, early spring. And people were, this was all over the internet, people were getting snow from outside, and they were bringing it in the house, and they were melting it, but it wouldn't melt. They say, this isn't snow. What is this? They would even put it in the frying pan or a pot, and they would try and melt it like that, and it didn't. It just burned. Like you could see the burn marks on it. What was it? It acted like snow. You could pack it together. You could make a snowball. But it didn't melt. What? Is that what came down in that snowstorm last night? Now, I never saw any of that personally. And I went and looked. Because where I live, there's a lot of snow 6 months of the year. And I brought some snow in occasionally, and I tested it, and it always turned to water. Maybe, did you see that personally, firsthand, close up? Did you see that snow? Or was it just one big internet prank? I don't know. I can't say because I never did see it personally. But there's a few interesting stories out there that go back many years about things that have fallen from the sky that nobody can explain. Specifically one that we're going to talk about tonight in the extension, where it came down as blobs. They thought it was rain. They get a lot of rain there in this place in Washington State. Oakville, it's called. And they thought it was rain at first, but it wasn't. It was something else. So we're going to cover that in the extension tonight. And then a video from a couple of years ago, which has been merged together with, and there's actually a piece from Unsolved, like the actual Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack from a few years ago in the thing tonight. It's cool. Unsolved Mysteries. Maybe you could solve. I can't do Robert Stack. But then there's another piece in this video I put together from about 3 years ago. Some weirdness falling from the sky. Again, what is it? What's coming down on us? Now you could say, well, it's directed energy weapons, Shadow. I say no. Directed energy weapons, blue roofs, all that. I get that. Is that what started the fires in Jasper? Is that what started the problems in Hawaii or the hurricanes? Don't know. What the hell's going on in Antarctica? DARPA, what are they doing? Do they have a Stargate? What's going on? Well, this is a whole different thing. This is weird stuff falling from the sky. We're going to get into that in the extension tonight. And don't forget, we have Angelina Ireland from the Delta Hospice Society on the show tomorrow night. Delta Hospice Society said, no, we're not going to offer MAID to our people. They don't want it. And because of that, the government just cut their funding. So she's going to talk about all of that tomorrow night. Angelina Ireland on the show tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. I love you all, and I appreciate you all. And I will talk to you all again tomorrow night. And the extension starts on shadowdavis.com in exactly 2 minutes. All Access Nighthawks, I will see you there.